Hello, my dear friends. Welcome to the live meeting of mine. And this is the first live session I'm doing on Facebook. And today I'm going to interview one sales expert or a sales seasoned professional, Mr. Bhrigu Ahuja. So I would like to start with a small introduction of the guest. So Mr. Ahuja is the founder of Advanced Manufacturing Consultancy Group, AMCG, a technology and management consultancy company specialized in additive manufacturing. Also, he holds a position of CTO at a Delhi-based company called Objectify Technologies, and he has been working for more than 14 years into the industry and has a privilege with working extensively in both sales and technology domains. Mr. Ahuja is a mechanical engineer by education and holds a master degree in rapid product development from De-Montfort University, UK. After completing his academic education, he had his first experience in the domain of technology, sales, while working at Materialise, a uh, multinational technology innovation company headquarters at Belgium. His experience at Materialise involved him working for different business units within the company at various geographical locations. His next experience was working as a scientific researcher at the Institute of Photonics Technologies, Germany. In addition to his technical responsibilities at the Research Institute, he was also actively involved in the industry for collaborating research projects. In 2016, Mr. Ahuja founded AMCG, his company, Advanced Manufacturing Consultancy Group in Delhi, with the intention of providing consultancy and training to the additive manufacturing industry. He has since been actively working in collaboration with the Indian manufacturing industry by providing a combination of technology and business solution in the domain of 3D printing or additive manufacturing. So I would like to welcome Mr. Ahuja, a lot of viewers over here. And hello Bhrigu, how are you?
Hello Himanshu, thank you for having me.
Thank you. So I hope you are doing good during this Corona period. Many people are suffering, but yes, we have opportunity also having at home.
Yes, indeed. No doubt it is going to be a very challenging time for the industry and the business in general. There are going to be cutbacks, and in the domain of sales, it is going to become more challenging. But it is also an opportunity for individuals to develop their skills, to also create platform for themselves in order to organize themselves, which is very critical in a sales role, and to look back and introspect and see how they can improve and be more effective using the tools. Remember, with the coronavirus pandemic, we will also see a lot of changes in the way sales processes will be conducted. There is going to be an emphasis on remote selling, but there still needs to be a very personal connection because sales is always a personal, emotional activity.
Right.
So salespeople and individuals need to really think through and develop techniques, develop patterns, develop styles in which they can be more effective during the upcoming period.
Wow, what a great insight. So this is the power of talking with some great leaders in the industry, because many people, get negative while being at home. But when we speak to the leaders, so this is the type of insight we usually get. So, Bhrigu, I would like to start with your experience as you have been into technology sales. You have been you are a engineer first, then you started your career as a into sales as well. So, would you like to brief your journey and how was it different and how did you take it through?
So yes, indeed, I am an engineer, a mechanical engineer by education. And after I completed my bachelor's of engineering, I was really conflicted between two educational choices for higher education that I would have had. I was on one side considering a higher education management course, and on the other side, I had inherent engineering attitude in me, and I wanted to look at masters in a technical field. Finally, I decided that it would probably be better for me to look at a technology domain. And that is why I went for a higher education, which was a master's in science, which was based on basically product development. This is something that I did abroad in the UK. And basically, during the course and even during my first job, it became very evident to me that sales is not just an occupation, it's not just a job role. It is something that you have to do.
Right.
Maybe you need to sell internally to your boss. Maybe you need to sell your idea to an investment team. Maybe you need to work as a technical person in a sales project and convince the customer technically. So everybody ends up doing sales. They do it at different level. They may directly be doing it to an end customer for a revenue, or they may be doing it internally. Actually, even in our personal lives, we have to negotiate and sell with our families, with our friends, with our relatives.
Right.
So sales is more of a personality trait, in my opinion, that we need to develop in order to move forward in life, rather than just an occupation. But I do understand that we'll be more talking about the occupational aspect of sales. And there, coming from a technology background, I was associated with a marvelous, innovative company which focuses on the 3D printing additive manufacturing technology. This was a company based out of Leuven in Belgium, Materialise. So Materialise as a company was a very innovative company, and it was full of people who had fresh ideas. And what was great, and I really feel privileged that my first work experience was with a company and with, and companies are basically a collection of people who move towards a common goal, a common vision. And within Materialise, I really understood what it means to be in a professional environment, what it means to do sales. And typically Materialise was the kind of company that would hire fresh minds with fresh ideas, generally engineers, and without them knowing so, at some stage, the engineers who came in for a technical profile would get converted into a sales profile. So it was very interesting how the transition happened, and how a technical person was groomed, and he himself felt more comfortable. Nobody came in and he was told that you have to do sales, but everybody grew into a sales role by first interacting at a technical, at least I wouldn't say everybody, but at least in my case, started as a technical person in a technical role. You interacted with the customer, you understood the problems of the customer, you understood how your solution should be pitched, and suddenly you found yourself becoming a much stronger salesperson.
Right.
And that is how the transition happened, which was a very interesting part of growing into that field. So I worked for 5 years for Materialise, and there I was very lucky to look into different business domains.
Okay.
And learn some fresh sales techniques, organizational techniques, how to the customers, how to interact, because it was a multinational company. A lot of work happened over the phone, online, and the combination of using a personal phone call with a formal email was something that is very important, especially now when we would see less and less of personal travel happening. So that really brought sales personality in me, I would say. And because this was after my master's, I had certain technical skills that I could bring into my role as well. And that was a very interesting 5 years at Materialise, where I started as a core technical person and grew into account manager for Materialise. And I would say that that is where I learned most of my sales techniques, something that we'll discuss further in the interview. And following my experience at Materialise, I went back to a very, very technical role. This was working as a scientific researcher in Germany, where I again had to somehow intentionally or unintentionally collaborate with the industry. This meant again selling your ideas, selling your research ideas, and inviting industry to participate in collaborative research projects. And it was important to not just pitch what you have, but to understand what they are really looking for, and then to package your research in a way that would be attractive to the company. So those two experiences, the first experience at Materialise, which was more of a formal sales experience, where I was groomed by the management of Materialise into a more active sales role. And there are really some interesting techniques, and that is where I really understood the importance of having a like-minded mentor at an early stage in your career, because your first professional experience in a sales role is really going to be defined by the kind of sales manager you have.
Yes.
And I feel that everything that you do in future is going to be through the lens of that ideology that your initial sales experience has been. So it's very important to be in the right company, choose the right managers, and in order to grow as a salesperson in a company.
So I think in the first question itself, you have given a lot of answers to me. Like what is my takeaway? Like one thing you told, that sales is not just a profession; it is a way of life. People should learn sales even they are in any profession. At least they should know the basics of sales. To like yes, there are companies who are really working on this field where people should grow and they should learn sales as well, like despite of being into technical or any background. And three is like you should be very it is very important to have a right mindset, and you should be very cautious while choosing your company and domain and the boss especially, because it is going to define your future progress.
Yeah, but to be honest, it's easier to be said with the job market. A lot of times you are thankful for the role that you get.
Whatever you have, whatever we have, right?
Exactly. And you don't really know your sales manager in and out, but that is where it becomes important for people like you to be sales coaches. And there is a vast community who is going to learn the right kind of sales techniques, right kind of values with the kind of work that you've been doing.
Right. Great. Bhrigu, like my second question is, like, would you like to share some details on like what are the techniques to develop and maintain a sales pipeline? Because when we are doing sales, so pipeline is the crucial thing. Like we know all the techniques to speak and talk and listen, but even if pipeline is not there, the salesperson is not going to do anything. And the boss can like any company can see the future of salesperson with the pipeline itself. So would like to give some light on how to develop and maintain a sales pipeline.
Yes, indeed, very important aspect of the sales process. And I think to a certain extent, it is something that is neglected quite a bit, because sometimes because of the overconfidence that salesperson might have on a particular project coming through. So in my company, in Materialise, we used to always have sales projects, and we used to have accounts. So accounts used to be something which is basically a company, an account. It is defined as a client.
Okay.
And within that, at different times, you would have sales projects of different values. So firstly, it would be very important because a salesperson has, again, he needs to prioritize his work, and he needs to work on both. He needs to keep on maintaining his relationship with the account, but he also needs to close the projects for specific targets. It is target, it's the sales job, sales role is very quantifiable. As much as it is important to look at the big philosophical picture of sales, we must not forget that we are driven by targets. We are driven by quarterly, half-yearly, yearly targets, and those need to be completed. Both things need to be balanced. So we must decide how to invest our time, and we need to do both things: invest in the relationship with that account, and also decide on prioritizing our sales projects in order to achieve our targets. So in order to make sure that we have enough plan B to complete a target, it is essential to build up a decent sales pipeline.
Right.
And typically the ways to build up a pipeline would be that you need to make sure that you have enough accounts, enough people, enough relationships, so that you are constantly in touch with them. And the moment you identify a problem, the moment you identify an opportunity, you are intelligent enough and aware enough to convert that into a sales project. Often our clients do not know that they need a solution from us. They also sometimes do not know that they have a problem.
Yes.
But you need to go and identify a problem, and you need to then convince them that it is a problem. Because if your client isn't convinced that it's a problem, he's not going to invest into a solution.
Right.
And for that, you need to build up a relationship. You need information that is not evident without a strong relationship. You need to have, so to say, your fans inside the company, somebody who is really, really close to you, who is going to, between the lines, discuss with you and tell you what the challenges are. And then you need to package your product as a solution in order to solve that problem. So for that, for building up your pipeline, again, the important thing is to have especially I'm speaking more from a technology domain, where you would be focusing more on solution selling rather than just pitching a product and doing the product placement. So in that, you need to have the kind of information where you can identify it as a problem. And this comes in with regular contact. This comes in with deep technical knowledge about the company. This comes in by doing a lot of research about the company and packaging it. And you need to have specific documentational tools where you should, for example, one thing that we used to do was build up a organizational hierarchy within the company. And then we used to, whenever we would initiate a new sales project, we would discuss with our managers, why do we feel there is a sales project? Why do we feel that there is going to be a product, a solution that we'll be able to sell? Has the customer demanded it? Or have we thought about a problem that does exist, and then we're going to convince it convince our customer and sell it as a solution. And with every sales project, the way we would work is we would have something called a parameter that would be the technical convincing, and another parameter that would be the commercial convincing. And we would give these both aspects a certain weightage. So for example, out of 100, we would say that our customer, our potential customer is convinced 50% that we are the right technical solution. So you would give it a 0.5 weightage, and similarly, you would know that there is the existence of a budget and the company, the purchaser is ready to spend the budget this year, and he's convinced on, and you are potentially one of the candidates, so you would give it a weightage. And with this, you would be able to give a certain weightage, multiply the two to the complete value of the sales project. So if your target was, for example, 10,000 US dollars for this month, and you would have one project of $10,000, as a salesperson, it wouldn't be a good strategy to be convinced that 100% this project is going to run. You really need to have additional projects, because there is always a probability that this project may not end up becoming a purchase. So in this case, you would then decide how much you feel there is your solution is a technical solution for the problem that they're having, and give it a weightage. And on the commercial side, how strongly you feel that. And if both are 50%, you would really reduce the value of the 10,000 as the effective sale. So then you would build up a pipeline to complete your $10,000.
Right.
And therefore you need to really go into depths of, and that is where when we are thinking about arbitrary percentage, it is something that a salesperson has to decide on his own as his gut feeling. And the managers need to question, need to discuss why is that a certain percentage. Because remember, the managers play a very important role in forcing the salespeople to maintain a decent pipeline, because by experience, they know the overconfidence that a certain person might have. And that is why a salesperson would also be questioned on the weightages that are assigned to technical convincing and commercial convincing, and whether he's being overly optimistic or overly pessimistic in that. So these techniques help you in maintaining a pipeline. Again, having a very, very strong, and at some stage, sales managers, the problem happens really is that a salesperson decides that he needs to generate new leads, but he has got no accounts, because whatever accounts he had, he's already discussed with them and there is no sales project. So at that stage, you need to decide whether you need to spend more time with your existing contacts in order to investigate whether you can generate more sales projects, or you need to create more accounts. And that is how genuinely a salesperson should balance his time.
Right. You are like correctly said, and we have seen things. It is not very uncommon when salesperson is very 100% sure that I'm going to have this project, and they ended up losing this project for any cause.
Yeah, so, and yes, generally what happens then is that the salesperson focuses on finding an excuse in the last week before the quarter, rather than actually thinking about that in the first week.
Yes.
But that doesn't help again.
Correct. So if I take my takeaway from your answers to this question, so strategy for making a strong pipeline is maintaining a relationship. 1, 2 is getting right insights, because it should not be just a general relationship. You should have good, healthy, and healthy business relationship. 3rd is what I get is you should qualify the project. Like you have identified the need, okay, they have need, and you might have also convinced them, but there might be a case that customer is not feeling urgency. He would say, okay, I found the problem, I'll take it in the next year. So you should qualify
Next
in
year,
terms of
exactly.
money, he has
Yeah,
money.
qualify and quantify it. So quantification is very important. The qualification should not be just a yes and a no. You need
Yes.
to quantify it in order to make sure, because everything is going to boil down to having enough numbers.
Yes.
It's very important, the quantification process, and there can be different quantification processes. And this is where I think the top managers need to decide for their sales team how
Right.
you want the quantification of the potential revenue versus their targets. That
Right.
is really important.
So you have actually rightly said the role of manager. It should not just to dictate a person or just to say, okay, you have to close this amount in this month. Manager should sit along with the person, see his pipeline thoroughly, and he should ask insightful questions. Okay, if you are confident enough for having this project, so what are the parameters? Why are you confident? And
Exactly.
in case you lose it, what are the plan B you are
Yeah.
having?
Yeah. A manager cannot just dictate what the result needs to be. He also needs to stand along with his team and say how to go about achieving it, what
Right.
are the steps that need to be taken. And he needs to be a person who is constantly validating the information and the data. Because again, the manager has his own targets, which are being fulfilled by his team. If the team doesn't fulfill their individual targets, the manager doesn't fulfill his target. So it's
Right.
really important how to manage a sales team.
Correct, correct, correct. Okay, Bhrigu, sometimes people get confused between account management and sales project management. Sometimes people, mix both the things. So would like to brief, like give some difference or how to see these things precisely.
Yeah. Following from what I said previously. So it really depends how you define an account, but it's basically a specific client. And generally, what would happen is that if you have a very big client, for example, an automotive company, you may have different teams within the company. And within each department or each team, there is somebody who is a purely commercial purchaser who basically decides on writing the purchase order, and who decides on the budgets, and who decides on which would be the priority. And then you have the technical heads, the head of the R&D departments, for example, or the users of a software product, for example, who would be making the technical decisions. So typically, you need to do account management of the complete accounts so that you are in touch and you're aware of all the different departments that exist that would be of interest to you. You know the people who are on the purchasing side of things, who are on the commercial decision making side of things, and you know the people who are in the technical decision making side of things. Often the mistake that people would do is they would just focus on the commercial decision maker, for example, thinking that the purchase order is going to be signed by this person. But if the requirement for the, especially this is very much applicable in the case of technology products, if the requirement and the validation of that product doesn't come from the technical head, often the commercial purchaser are going to be not in a position to issue a purchase order. So
Right.
it's really important to maintain that technical, and remember the potential of finding the solution depends on having the correct information on the problem statement. That often comes from the technical team.
Right.
And account management would mean you are basically building up a relationship, having enough information, discussing problems, discussing challenges, and then you may decide, yes, this is a very important account, but I have to maintain my relationship with this account. I cannot ignore them. But for this quarter, there is no budget available. So I cannot expect that there is going to be a sales project which is going to fulfill my this quarter's target from this customer.
Right.
So then you need to also spend your time on defining a sales project from another customer without sacrificing your relationship. So it's basically account management is more of a relationship management task, I would say, whereas sales project management would be a real solution selling task that needs to be done. And a lot depends on how you prioritize the two, but you have to do both, and how much under pressure you are to meet your immediate targets.
Yes, you rightly said that, like, when you are mapping the count, you should know all the decision makers and influencers, because sometimes if your solution is not technically qualified, then purchaser is not going to help, and even if you have very strong relationship. So despite of all facts, you should know all the influencers and decision makers, and you should have the right information where you can just pitch your solution rather than just going and pitching right away. Second, my takeaway from this talk is you are saying, this account management is something. Yes, this is a company, you are dealing with them, good. But for this month, if you have a target of, for say, $10,000, and this account cannot give anything, so you should not focus, or you should not waste time. You can just maintain the relationship in a bit, and for this project, or for say this is a project for you, you should look on some other aspects rather than disturbing your relationship with this particular account.
It is like often salespeople might try to force a solution or force a product, and just because they have a strong relationship with the company, they might think that they can push anything in order to achieve their target. And I don't think, I think that can often have a negative effect on the relationship. And you need to be very careful about being genuine with the customers and making sure that you are adding value and solving the problem that they might have, rather than just throwing a product at them, even if
there is no need, maybe.
No need for that.
Right.
That is, it's really important. And how do you maintain that relationship? And I think now we need to make sure that there is a combination of emails are a very good tool to formalize a conversation, but often they are not, as much as it's written, it is not, the same amount is not read of an email. So we need to use verbal communication tools. There should be more personal phone calls, but not with the aspect of forcing a customer if he doesn't want to talk. So that balance has to be maintained.
Yes. So this is something I would like put this thing into a pre-closure state. Some salespeople do this mistake and do some pre-closure thing, because there is no demand analysis, there is no solution pitching, there is no convincing the things, and you are trying to close something for your
exactly. And sometimes what also happens is that you are a technical solution, you know that everybody is technically convinced, but for some reason there is no budget for this quarter, and instead of pushing the purchaser, pushing the commercial decision maker again and again, you need to understand why certain things will not happen in this quarter and they will happen in the next quarter. So again, having a strong relationship will enable you to make sure that you have additional projects, but a specific project from a customer may come in the next quarter. All that information is really important.
Right. Very insightful thing. Bhrigu, sometime like as we see, as we know, sales is all about achieving targets and fulfilling the numbers. So how is it important to look at the data and like what is importance of data and how should we look beyond the numbers? Like how this thing we should conceive into our mind.
Yeah, again, I think data is important because it really gives us quantifiable information, but we should really understand the source of that data. That there is a saying which basically means that you should not trust any data that you've not faked yourself, which basically means that you really need to know the source of the data.
Right.
Um, if in a company you have a technical person who is the user, who is a machine user, and he gives you information on the purchasing budget for that quarter, you really want to revalidate that data with a commercial decision maker. Numbers are really good, but you need to know the source of the data and you need to look beyond that. There can be budgets, especially like we hear a lot of numbers being thrown around in the news these days about companies, how much they would spend on their R&D, how much they would spend on purchasing new technologies. But we really need to understand what they are looking for, what they are purchasing out of a budget, how much is going to be dedicated towards a specific department and towards a specific product, and how much is going to be dedicated towards building up a new facility or manpower. And breakup is really important in order to, because we just hear the news of a certain X million dollar budget and we feel that we're going to get a big portion out of it.
Right.
And therefore it is really important to break down the details, validate and revalidate the information, and then make sure that you have pitched in your solution and that you are considered as a potential purchase. Often individual departments would have to give their request for purchase to the purchasing department, who's going to then decide how much or what all products and solution will be purchased. So again, I think in terms of data, account management plays a very big role in terms of validation of data, looking at the numbers, but also looking beyond the numbers, looking at if there are competitor products, looking at if there are competitor technologies that are being considered, looking at who is the decision maker, what his mindset and motivation is, and again, talking to the right people. That is really important when you're validating data.
Yes. So basically, you are saying that we should not trust any information what we are having. Like where sometimes even from the company, when we say relationship, we sometimes get some insight from a person inside the company itself. So we should
I
not trust
mean, we
anything.
have to trust some information, but that should be validated.
Right. At some
And,
parameters.
and we always need to take a chance and make our decisions based on the information we have. And we'll be able to make better decisions about our actions if we are more confident about the authenticity of the information.
Right. So how should a salesperson plan his revenue? How can we project a sales revenue? Like what are the key things when we say, okay, if we have this much of target, we should have multiple pipelines or things. But like how can we project a sales revenue, or being a manager, how can he ensure that his salesperson is working on the right way, or he's not going to make him fail at the end of the month or a year?
So I think in terms of projecting the revenue, firstly, I think this question is more applicable to the management and the managers who are managing the sales team, because in most of the companies, they're the ones who decide the sales targets. So sales targets are typically decided based on a revenue projection that they have. Companies look at uh, their key accounts, and again, the account management here gives them first-hand information on whether their budgets for the next year are going to be increased, their purchasing budgets are going to be increased or reduced. Information like this is important in projecting the revenue. Then overall sense of the economy in a specific region needs to be understood. For example, there may be national decisions focusing on investment in the aerospace industry or the automotive industry. Such decisions and such information is important. We see the state of the automotive industry at the moment, and most of the technology-driven companies know that it is going to be difficult to make sales in the automotive industry at the moment. So that information is something that needs to be considered. You really need to then start looking at how to pitch your solutions, and whether you are going to be a potential solution for the investment that is being made. In terms of international business, I think there is trade policies that play a role. There is national focus on different areas, different industries that play a role. And at a very, very small territorial level, each salesperson should know his key accounts for the previous year and what he projects from them, and what is the potential of generating new accounts. Every company believes that their sales revenue should be higher than the previous year, because we believe in, as optimistic people, we want growth of a company, and therefore we want a higher sales revenue, and it automatically leads to giving a higher target to our salespeople. And there has to be a reason, a plan on how this revenue is going to be generated.
Right. So you are saying that while planning a revenue or while planning the targets of a salesperson, one should include many factors or the market news or the informations, so that they can plan the revenue correctly. They should not under manage it, or they should not make it exponentially high, so that there is a unwanted pressure on the salesperson.
Yeah, I mean, there should always be some amount of pressure, to be honest, and there is a need to aim higher than what we believe we can achieve. So I wouldn't say that there should not be any pressure. There needs to be a pressure, but there needs to be a logic behind it. There needs to be reasons behind it. And sales job is something which is very demanding job. And if a salesperson hasn't got the pressure of making sales, I think there's something wrong.
Right. Right.
So there needs to be pressure. There should not be undue pressure, and there should not be unrealistic pressure, and there should not be pressure without the support and without the right tools in order to achieve that form, that target. That is important.
Right. So, like, in order to achieve that, in order to achieve the revenue, whatever the company has decided, how should a manager manage a sales team? Like, what are the things, or what are the, your experience? How do you manage a sales team?
I think firstly, it is very important that whosoever is the manager has gone through the same roles.
Yes.
You cannot have a sales manager. I mean, I'm sure companies do have, and I've also worked with companies where people who are managing the sales team themselves do not have the mindset and the experience of making sales. So
Yes.
important that a person who is managing the sales team has done ground level sales himself, has spoken to clients, has understood the challenges in making the sale, has understood the value of information, has can groom and coach the people in the right way. He should be able to convince them on the importance of listening to information, on the importance of maintaining a relationship. So, firstly, the manager should be experienced himself at ground level sales, what he expects out of his team. Somebody who is the owner of a company and who is an investor into a company and has not necessarily gone through working as a salesperson, is maybe he just looks at the numbers and is unhappy that the revenue hasn't come, but he doesn't realize the reasons behind it, which
Yes.
demotivates the salesman. Remember, the sales uh, occupation, the sales profession is a very much of a personality job. You need to be positive. You need to believe in a higher outcome. You need to be happy about it. You need to be motivated. You need to be persistent. Only then will you be able to achieve your targets or come near to your targets. If you're talking to a client and you're demotivated and unhappy, no matter how great your product is, it is
Yes.
very difficult for you to convince him because the positive emotion wouldn't flow, so to say. So similarly, the sales manager needs to make sure that his team understands the challenges, is capable, he is standing with them, supporting them in making the sale, and he is giving them enough credit for the work that they've done.
Right.
There have been examples in front of me where people who are managing the sales team often push people to invest into a certain account. And when they realize that a project or a sale is going to materialize and there is going to be a positive outcome, they end up totally taking over the project. And the salesperson who's done the groundwork feels really demotivated because he's no longer part of the project.
Wow.
So there are
This
practices
is,
that I've seen which I say that really demotivate the salesperson, and the sales role is primarily about motivation and persistence. Um,
yes.
Having realistic targets, having a break-off of that targets, discussing with your sales team how the management decided on a specific target, what were their reasons why a specific target is necessary, what are the investments that are going to be made into the sales process in order to achieve a higher target. So it really boils down to having a teamwork and having a strategy and being with the salesperson. Um, Concepts of training, investing in the salesperson, um, having them into sales training as you will be providing. All these are motivational techniques and they provide skills and capabilities. And then on the other side, there need to be systems and tools for monitoring the progress of a salesperson and the progress of a certain project. The manager are not doing the right job if they only question why a certain sales project has failed at the end of the quarter. They need to start discussing the progress of each project from the very beginning and making an informed judgment themselves in order to guide. So it's really, sales job is really important to have a good mentor. It is really, really important. Good managers and
Yes. Like you have given very detailed information on this. And if I club down this thing into like what I get from your answer is, first thing is your mindset. You should have a very positive mindset and should be enthusiastic while managing a team. Second is skills. Like if a manager is not having a skill himself, so he will be just just a dictator who is just saying things. Okay, do it, and while not be knowing things how to do it or what are the challenges he might be facing. Third thing, what I get from your thing is ethics. So when you are saying okay, one should not take the accounts while at the time of closing. So ethics should be there. And fourth is when you are saying okay, you should look at the numbers and you should not just you should be tracking the salesperson. Okay, it also comes under the skills, and there should be a system as well. So there are four
Exactly.
takeaways I've just got.
Yeah, I mean, there can be a lot of examples of unethical behavior in sales. And I think it is important that sales managers also ensure an ethical behavior by their salespeople. They shouldn't be under the concept that as long as you get the revenue, we don't care how you get it. It, it is not the long-term strategy. It may help you in that quarter. But again, for technology sales, we've realized that it's really important to make sure, and the outcome has to be a win-win situation between a customer and the provider of a service or a product.
Right.
If the parties at the end of the transaction do not feel that they've won, then although your product has been sold, you've not got the best possible outcome out of that solution. So you really need to make sure that whether it is a negotiation tactic, whether it is about discussing the technical solution, your customer after purchasing should believe that he's actually gained and he's actually won out of the negotiation and the transaction. So that is really important to make
Right.
sure that happens.
So being a manager, are you saying that manager might be a post, but you need to become a leader when you are managing a team?
Exactly. I think, yeah, for any team, you need to become a leader because, and one thing is really, really important, that the manager himself has gone through the challenges that his team members will be going through. Only then can he guide them and motivate them.
Right. So, okay, Bhrigu, like while managing a team, okay, if, I have seen things when a person is managing a team and he's might be good at this thing, but when a company is expanding and he's doing some hirings from college, so when a fresher comes in, and because generally I've seen when a fresher comes into a company, he hardly has an idea like where to go and what's the where where he want to go after 5 or 10 years. So how to train and how to groom a fresher or a fresher salespeople if they decided to come into sales?
Right. I mean, again, I think I can speak from my own experience, and um, going back to my first experience with Materialise, I sort of became a salesperson, or I started selling solutions and selling the company at a later stage. First, it was important for me to understand the product, understand the solution, understand the people who are working in production, and really know what we do as a company and find value in it and believe in the positive outcomes of the solutions that we would be providing. And I would say that um, it is important that salespeople do not go into the field without any skills, without any knowledge, without information about what they're selling. You'll never be able to. I'm not saying that a salesperson needs to be first made into a technology specialist, only then he would go into sales, because there'll always be questions that a salesperson, a technical question that a salesperson doesn't know. And in that case, the right strategy is to tell your customer that you will be finding the answer to the question from the appropriate person. But you need to be aware of the impact that your product or solution is going to make to the customer. You need to be aware of how your product and service is positioned in comparison to a competitor. All that requires a background and technical knowledge. And again, this is probably coming from a technology sector where I felt more confident as a salesperson because I clearly understood the work that my clients were doing. I wasn't in a position where my clients were doing something and I did not understand their process. I completely understood their process. I knew what mistakes were they making. I knew what were the advantages of my product, and I knew when my product would not be a solution and to not expect a sale. So technical competence might be important for technology sales, and that is why we find in most of the technology companies you have a lot of engineers who convert into a sales role. And maybe that is really important that they go through the product details, the technology of the product, how it's being manufactured, and then sit with the customer and discuss these tools. So freshers should typically first gain understanding of the solution and then go into the field to pitch that solution to the clients. Other things that would be required is to have a very structured and organized approach that you give to a fresh salesperson. Somebody who is doing sales for the first time should have a very good idea of how he needs to communicate the information to his seniors, to his team managers. He really needs to have, the company needs to develop a system where information is recorded, where the, like I said initially, the probability of a sales project is discussed, the factors are discussed, the hierarchy of a new account, all this, the documentation aspects are really important. And I know that a lot of salespeople hate this because this is typically an investment of their time in a task that they believe will not lead them to closing their targets for that quarter.
Right.
But it's important in the long term, and it's important. This information will help a salesperson to understand why he lost a sales project and how to not make those same mistakes in the second time.
Right. I think I can relate to this. When I started my sales in technology selling, I think I can relate to this. This is I actually went through this process, so I can actually connect with whatever you're saying.
Yeah. I mean, there should not be over documentation and repeat of information, but there clearly needs to be, especially, I mean, now with the COVID crisis, we need to understand that a lot of people would be working remotely. So if managers need to have a constructive communication with the team members, and they need to analyze projects, they need to develop strategies. It is really important to have documented information and documented communication.
Right, right, great. Thank you, Bhrigu. Thank you for all your insight and on my questions. I think this will help most of our viewers who want to learn sales and who are struggling at some point of stage, and it will also help some managers and some management also to look from a new perspective when they are working with their sales team. But I'll not going to leave you now. I'll be asking you one bonus question because see, I'm posting a lot of videos now, and I'm talking about that when you are going to sell something, people are not buying the product, people are buying you. So this is what I believe, and I think you are also believing that. So would like to give some tips that, like, from the attire to the, like, to the relationship and to the way of talking to listening and to closing, like if you would like to give some light on what are salespeople, maybe experienced or a fresher, should take care while talking to a customer, maybe over the phone, over the email, over the meeting.
Yeah, I think firstly it is really important to be polite. It is important to make sure that you appreciate that the other person is investing time in talking to you. And you need to make sure that before you start presuming that you are a solution and you have a product, you should understand and listen to what they have to say about their product.
Yes.
You need to introduce yourself. You need to be very professional. You need to be very careful in before you start having a long conversation to ask them if this is the right time to speak and if they would have the time. And you need to, a lot of times, if you're talking to senior people, you should yourself tell them how you got their number. You should give a reference. You should tell them that such and such person gave me your number. And if that person has a positive relationship, you are more likely to have a good conversation with the person. So background is important. Clearly introduce your company, introduce who you are, and then you need to make sure that you're asking the right questions. And in a way, at some stage, you need to sense whether the potential customer, is getting irritated by questions or not. And you need to make sure that he sees value in the conversation that he's having with you. If you're going to meetings, always being early, being professionally dressed, all those things matter a lot. And I would say general courtesy and being happy and having a sense of humor helps in situations. A sales job is very demanding. There have been instances where you might have to travel a longer period of time, and then when you reach the client, because of some emergency, he's not there. So you need to make sure that your client realizes that your time is also valuable, but at the same time, because he's missed a meeting or because of some urgency on his side, it shouldn't be that you are frustrated about it, but you need to make sure that he understands the value of your time as well. So he needs to value you as an individual, and he needs to also believe that you are also investing time and creating value. And that is why sometimes it is important that if a client, if somebody whom you're having discussions with is not ready to invest, you need to take a break. It's not a bad strategy to let them also realize your value.
Yes, I think you have covered the small points which every salespeople sometimes miss. And when you're talking about talking to a senior, they generally fail to give reference. They generally just call and believe that he will give 5 or 10 minutes. And sometimes I've seen people talk in hurry. Okay, can I talk for 5 minutes or so? So like you should be very calm and polite. I think you have very very precise things. And when you're talking, okay, you should be very like when you are in sales, very many things will happen which you have not expected. Like sometimes you will lose the order, sometimes the person will not be there, so you should not get frustrated. Yes, make him believe, make him understood that something has happened, but maintain a relationship. So
Yeah,
I think
yeah, and I think I would say that you need to be very polite, but you also need to make sure that your customers and your potential clients understand your value.
right.
Only then will they give you time and respect you.
Right.
So it is very important to make sure that you are not, because what he shouldn't believe that he's doing you a favor by engaging with you. He should believe that what he's purchasing from you, what you're selling, is of true value to him, and he needs to make an investment into that as well. He will never invest his time, never invest his resources into your solution. So you need to create value for yourself and respect for yourself as well, and at the same time be very polite and humble about.
Right. I think you are correct, because when I to coach people into sales, I always say that relationship cannot happen if the both persons are not on a same level, on a same frequency. Even if you're talking to a junior person, or even if you're talking to a senior person, you should be at both same level, and this is your duty to bridge the gap. If the person is over here, so it's your duty to bridge the gap by the way you are communicating. So I think you are very correct on this point. Bhrigu, one more question, because like I know you for past 4 years at least, and I've seen your knowledge and things. But why are you not active on social media? Because many of us would like to learn these insights from you. Why are you not active on social media?
I'm sorry, could you repeat?
I was saying that I know you for past 4 years now, and I've seen your the level of knowledge you are having, the level of work you do, and how you manage things. But there are many people who want to learn from you and want to know, why are you not on social media? Why are you not active on social media? Because this is the right platform now where they can get engaged with you and get some may learn small things.
Okay, probably a personality trait, I think. Uh, at a personal social media for personal level, uh, not at all.
Maybe on LinkedIn.
Yes, I'm present on LinkedIn. So I don't do any Facebook or Instagram. I'm not available there. So I like not to engage in social media at a personal level. I am present on LinkedIn, but it's an investment of time to put posts. At present, I'm with a company that I started in 2016. It is still something that I have to invest a lot of time in. As I have some previous engagements which are a higher priority to me. So I like to have conversations with people and discuss things, but I've not really actively looked at training and coaching as something for myself at the moment, maybe in future. And that is why I've not engaged in the social media from that perspective. Also, my company currently, although I have a sales background and a sales experience, I engage with clients at a very personal level, and um, I look at the solution side of it, and engaging on site with the customers. So I think it's a matter of not having not having enough time, and I think, to be honest, I haven't prioritized actively being on social media. I do occasionally go on LinkedIn, and I do actively do personal messaging to people, but maybe it is something that I have to start doing more actively, especially with the COVID crisis. It might be an opportunity to re-engage myself on social media.
Yes, I think the time which people has lost where you are not active, and this has been recovered from this interview, where they have listened to you a lot, and they can learn many things from you now. Thank you, Bhrigu. Thanks a lot. Thank you very much. Again, this was my first interview hosted by me, and I'm very privileged to having you with me. And like, I'll be doing a couple of more interviews in this Corona time. but I am very obliged that you are here, and our viewers will be connecting you over LinkedIn now, because I'm going to share the link, the profile link of yours in the profile. So be ready for more connections.
Thank you, Himanshu. It was an absolute privilege, and I enjoyed our conversations and discussions very much. And I hope it was of value to your
Indeed, it is like
you and yeah.
it was more than what I was expected, because I had planned some questions to you, and I was expecting some answers, but you have given more brief, and if I was expecting 10, so you was giving me 100 of value. So it was very good learning for me also, and for our viewers also.
That's very kind of you. Thank you.
So it was a very fantastic experience talking to Mr. Bhrigu Ahuja, and I hope you might have liked him, and you also might have learned a lot of things, because see, sales is not just a profession, as we already say, and you can adapt many things into your personal and daily day-to-day life. So stay tuned to learn more, and don't forget to follow Mr. Bhrigu Ahuja. I'm just putting his LinkedIn profile over here. Thank you. Bye.